Welcome, class. Mr. Offer here. We're going to start our World War II series. This will be section 8. And like in all my YouTube videos, I'm referring to I'm referring to the PowerPoint. It's right over here as I'm speaking. That's very important, guys, because as we go through this, hopefully you'll go through those PowerPoints. That's kind of where I'm getting this lecture from. The World War II series will be a 5-part series. It's going to be a lot longer than the last section we went over with. So I do want to kind of prepare you for that. So let's talk about what we're going to be discussing in this session. We're going to talk about the Pacific Theater and the European Theater. World War II had both the Pacific and the European theaters. And the thing I want to kind of, we're going to today on this session, we're going to go over the Pacific Theater, or what we would say the war with Japan. Now, in all these YouTube videos, I've opened them up to children. If you'll notice, the World War II series will not be. Strictly, not that I'm going to cover anything that's X-rated, but some of the material we're going to talk about in the Second War, I just don't know if it would be really appropriate for a little kid. This is some pretty graphic stuff, so therefore on these videos, they won't be open to children for whatever it's worth. So let's talk about the war with the Japanese. Guys, we will be hit December the 7th, 1941. The Japanese will attack Pearl Harbor. Now, I'd like to kind of go in. We don't have a lot of time on these lectures to explain. Normally, when I lecture on this, I will spend an hour on the war against the Japanese. I'll spend an hour on the war against Germany. I'm cutting that down to maybe 10 minutes if I talk that much. So it's going to really kind of cut down. So we get involved in this war December the 7th, 1941. The Japanese will hit. Now, a couple of things I like to point out. The Japanese were very successful in everything they did during this conflict. And when I mean they were successful, they were very successful. They will hit Pearl Harbor December the 7th. They'll follow that up with attacks in the Philippines. They will also attack Guam. They will also attack Wake Island and Guam were fueling stations for the United States military, and when the Japanese launch this major attack, they will attack both of those. The Japanese will be very successful. They will also go in, they will attack Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand. New Zealand. Gives me a hard time saying that. So they were very successful. A lot of people have always asked, why did the Japanese attack us? What did we do to deserve them attacking us? FDR had really kind of cut back on, the Japanese had been at war, guys, in China. The Japanese army that we're going to fight had been at war over in China for several years. I mean, we're not talking about guys that were not seasoned soldiers, seasoned pilots, seasoned sailors. The Japanese were a very well-cutting group of guys. They were well-trained. They had some of the best pilots in the world. What they did at Pearl Harbor, guys, they had a 90% almost success rate. The only reason Pearl Harbor was not more devastating is the Japanese, first of all, we had 2 carriers. They didn't know where they were at. So they were nervous. But if they had made one more sortie to come back, they had fuel supplies that were left over in Pearl Harbor. If they'd have knocked out those fuel supplies, the U.S. would have been totally out of that war for a while. So the Japanese were very well-trained, well-oiled army. They had done very good. As you go through, guys, you kind of find out, this will crank this war off. Adolf Hitler will declare war on us on December the 11th and then put us into this. But we never declared war on Germany. I got a couple of important dates as I'm going through the PowerPoint. December the 10th, 1941, the Japanese will go in and basically sink two British ships. One was Repulse, one was the Prince of Wales. December the 21st, 1941, they will begin their invasion into Thailand. December the 20th to the 25th, 1941, Hong Kong will fall along with Guam and Wake Island. January of 1942, at this point the Japanese had invaded Burma, Dutch Indies, New Guinea, the Solomon Islands. By February the 15th, 1942, they were now being driven into Singapore, and they had the Battle of Singapore. So you can kind of quickly figure out the Japanese army, guys, was unstoppable. By February the 19th, 42, they were attacking Australia. And I'm going to tell you something. This will be a very long and bloody war. In this particular session, I just wanted to crank it up. Number one, there was a couple of things you're going to see on your attendance. Why did the Japanese attack us? The answer is because FDR had cut back fuel supplies, trying to stop their aggression into China. Okay. Another important thing we saw is during the Treaty of Versailles, the Japanese had been disrespected at the Treaty of Versailles. This will cause that Japanese army under Tojo to prepare. Now, like I said at the beginning of this, guys, I would love to tell you that the U.S. was winning everything. That, hey, we're the U.S., we're the greatest, we're kicking everybody's tail, we're taking names. That's not the way this is going. The first part of this war, we are being defeated. The Japanese Army, the Japanese Navy, the Japanese Air Force is totally superior to anything we have. Okay? So we will end this first lecture that is where we are at, is we now will enter the war with Japan. Okay, guys, we'll pick this thing up in session 2, and we'll talk about how the U.S. fought back and what we did.